Okay, let's dive right in. We are jumping straight into, well, a crisis already in progress today.
Yeah, a big one. Right from the get-go.
A frantic chase through a really dangerous asteroid belt.
Yeah.
Um, Engines are failing.
Right, total system failure looming for the ship being chased.
There's this desperate rescue attempt happening that's just, draining all the power from the USS Enterprise.
Every last bit, pushing their systems to the brink.
And then,
Yeah.
then something, or rather someone, completely unexpected arrives.
And they change everything.
Something that immediately just throws everything. The mission, the ship itself, completely off balance.
That's absolutely right. And this deep dive, just for you, is based entirely on the content of a specific Star Trek source, the episode MUDD's Women.
Right.
We're going to
Wow.
treat everything that happens in that source material, all the events, the dialogue, the details, as the facts we're here to explore and understand together.
Yeah, it gives us such a fascinating window into, well, desperation, deception, and perception, too.
Definitely. All three are major themes here.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we pick up the story with the USS Enterprise, Captain Kirk in command, already pursuing this small, unidentified vessel. The source calls it a Class J cargo ship.
Which is, a pretty standard freighter type, nothing special usually.
But this one is clearly trying to evade them, pushing its engines way, way too hard, heading directly for what the source describes as a Schiller rating 35 asteroid belt.
And just so you know, a Schiller rating 35, that's not just a few rocks floating around, that's seriously hazardous territory. It's categorized for high danger, high density, lots of unpredictable stuff flying around.
Yeah, not somewhere you'd want to go for a Sunday drive. And despite warnings from the Enterprise, this little ship, it just isn't responding to hails. They're just plowing straight into potential oblivion.
And that refusal to respond, combined with heading into such extreme danger, it immediately signals something's wrong. This isn't just some freighter lost its way.
Oh, look.
This isn't standard space traffic behavior at all. The initial conflict is established instantly. You've got this unknown vessel acting erratically, forcing the Enterprise into a really difficult, dangerous position right from the start.
So our goal in this deep dive is really to pull apart the layers of this peculiar encounter. We want to dig into the key events, look at the fascinating characters that MUDD introduces.
Oh, Mudd himself is quite the character.
He really is. And the surprising revelations that come out and the sort of fundamental dynamics at play here, we want to extract the most interesting insights from the source material just for you.
And the danger, as you said, it escalates incredibly fast. As soon as they enter the belt, the Enterprise has to throw up its own deflector screens immediately, just basic self-preservation against the debris.
Right. But the pursued cargo ship, its engines finally just give out completely. Kaput.
So now they're dead in the water, drifting helplessly right into the densest part of that asteroid belt. A sitting duck.
Which presents Kirk with, well, a classic command dilemma, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Save the people potentially on that drifting wreck or protect his own ship.
To save them, the Enterprise has to make this incredibly risky maneuver. They actually extend their own deflector screen, their primary shield, against space junk and radiation to envelop the smaller ship as well.
Yeah, like putting an umbrella over someone else in a hailstorm, but way more complicated and dangerous.
Exactly. And the source material is very clear. This isn't some easy fix. It explicitly states this move overloads the Enterprise's own engines. There's a real cost.
The captain's log entry from Stardate 1329.8 specifically marks this moment. Kirk notes the escalating crisis caused directly by this necessary but ultimately damaging rescue effort. The ship is paying the price for saving others.
And just when you think things can't get worse,
They do.
they realize they need to beam the crew off that cargo ship immediately. Like right now. Because their vessel is literally starting to break apart under the asteroid impacts.
Time is absolutely critical. Seconds count.
But down in the transporter room, Scotty is facing major problems. He reports back, they aren't answering signals. And worse, there's nothing to lock onto. He can't get a fix on the crew members.
And then the really bad news hits. The Enterprise's own power systems start failing under the strain.
Yeah, the lithium crystals.
Exactly. The core components for their warp drive, for their primary power generation, they begin to fail. Scotty calls out the failures as they happen. One signal gone, then another circuit. It's happening fast.
This is where that cascade failure you mentioned really kicks in, isn't it?
It really is. The intense strain from extending that deflector screen, it causes these critical components in their power system to just fail. And these lithium crystals, they're not just like, big batteries. They are the absolute heart of the ship's ability to generate warp power, to supply energy to everything, shields, weapons, life support.
Everything.
Losing them puts the entire ship, everyone aboard, in dire peril. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's potentially fatal.
The whole situation's becoming utterly desperate. Then finally, almost miraculously, a distress signal flickers out from the dying cargo ship.
Just in the nick of time.
It allows Scotty to finally get a lock on. But the source says it's still difficult, unstable, and just as he's struggling, fighting to beam them out, the inevitable happens.
The ship gets hit.
Yeah. The cargo vessel takes a direct catastrophic hit from an asteroid. The source material is blunt, just states, it's gone.
Total destruction. A stark reminder of just how unforgiving that asteroid belt was and how incredibly tight the timing was on that rescue attempt. A few seconds later, and
nobody gets off. So who actually made it? Scotty initially only managed to beam one person aboard before the ship was hit.
Just one. Must have been frantic down there.
Then somehow, against all odds, wrestling with the failing systems, he locked onto 3 more signals and pulled them across just before the end.
Incredible skill from Scotty.
Absolutely. His final report is stark, though. Only 4 people in total were saved from that doomed cargo ship. 4 survivors.
And the arrival of these specific 4 individuals, well, it sets the stage for absolutely everything that follows. It's the catalyst for the entire story.
Right. So the first one aboard, the single man rescued initially, he's brought to the bridge, I think, and he immediately introduces himself as Captain Leo Walsh.
And his demeanor is, well, it's something else, isn't it?
It really is. He's immediately complimenting the Enterprise, calling it a darn beautiful ship. Seems almost weirdly relaxed, given he just survived his ship exploding.
Yeah, a little too calm, maybe.
And he's noticeably evasive when Kirk asks him straightforward questions, like about the size of his crew, already deflecting.
Red flags going up immediately.
Definitely. And then Scotty, down in the transporter room, recovering from the ordeal, delivers this fantastic line that kind of sets the stage for the other 3 survivors. He says something like, "So far as the ladies actually being the crew, you can explain that to the captain." Amen to that, Scotty.
Which, of course, instantly confirms what you might have guessed. The other 3 people beamed aboard just before the cargo ship blew were women.
Right. The source initially just refers to them collectively, like them, or the 3 of them. It's only later we get their names, Margot, Ruthie, and Evie.
And the effect these 3 women have upon their arrival, it's immediate and it's powerful. Palpable, you could say.
Yeah, the source even notes the reaction, or maybe the lack of reaction, from a Klingon guard who happens to be nearby. It seems even a Klingon is sort of affected, or maybe trying really hard not to show it.
Which tells you something right there, if a Klingon guard is reacting strangely.
Exactly. And Spock's initial interaction with the women is also quite telling. With his typical Vulcan logic and detachment, he basically tells them to save it, girls, because his type, Vulcans, can turn himself off from any emotion.
He's trying to signal he's immune to whatever effect they might be having.
But then the women respond to Spock, apologizing for the guard's reaction, and they add this really intriguing and, honestly looking back, quite loaded line. They say the guard is used to buying and selling people.
Oof. Yeah, that lands heavily.
Doesn't it? It's this early, kind of unsettling hint dropped into the conversation. It suggests the situation these women are actually in, and maybe the kind of business that Leo Walsh, or whoever he really is involved in. It's far from legitimate, far from conventional.
Buying and selling people? That casts a very dark shadow right away.
It really does. And that shadow looms even larger when you see the immediate, undeniable effect these women have on the rest of the crew. Almost right away, the women themselves notice it. One of them says, you can feel their eyes when they look at you, like something grabbing hold of you.
They're acutely aware of the intense, maybe unusual level of attention they're attracting from the male crew members.
And this isn't just, them feeling self-conscious or guys noticing attractive women. The source makes that clear. Mr. Spock, the ship's science officer, the voice of logic, he confirms it.
Right. He explicitly states that even his logical Vulcan senses picked up on something unusual happening. He says he noticed it too, which adds real scientific weight to their observation. It's not just imagination.
Exactly. And the source material quickly backs this up with hard, objective data. Later on, the ship's computer, running routine medical scans, reveals these really unusual readings across the board, specifically on the male members of the crew.
Universally.
Universally. High respiration rates, perspiration rates are up, heartbeat is rapid, blood pressure higher than normal. And it's not just one or two guys. This is happening ship-wide, affecting men regardless of their rank, their personality, their duties.
It's systemic. And the captain himself acknowledges it. The log entry from Stardate 1329.1 makes the severity and the mystery totally explicit.
Yeah, Kirk logs his genuine concern about this mysterious magnetic effect on the male members of my crew, including myself.
Hey.
He even admits he's affected.
And crucially, he adds, explanation unknown at present. Even the captain, the guy in charge, the model of discipline, acknowledges he's experiencing it, and that Starfleet science, the ship's sensors, nothing can currently explain why this is happening or what is causing it.
Okay, so just pause for a second, though, and think about what the source has laid out here. You've got the women's own firsthand observation. You've got confirmation from a logical Vulcan. You have objective medical scan data from the ship's computer showing widespread physiological changes in the men.
And you have the captain's own official log entry admitting he's affected too, and that it's completely unexplained.
Right. This isn't just, a social dynamic or simple attraction anymore. It's something fundamentally altering the physiology, maybe even the behavior of the male crew. What does that immediately tell you about the real nature of this situation? How would you react if you were on that ship experiencing this strange, powerful, and totally baffling effect, knowing it seems somehow tied to these three women they just rescued?
It completely transforms the situation, doesn't it? It goes from being a straightforward, albeit dangerous, rescue mission into this deep scientific mystery with potentially huge implications for ship safety and crew discipline.
Absolutely. The mystery is just deepening by the minute. And the captain, well, he needs answers. He's got these 4 survivors, one of whom is clearly lying, 3 of whom are causing this bizarre effect, and he's facing potential charges against Leo Walsh. So he convenes a formal proceeding, a ship's hearing.
Standard procedure in situations like this. It's noted in the captain's log. Stardate 1329.2. The captain himself presides over it, needs to get to the bottom of this.
So, first order of business. Establish the identity of the guy claiming to be Captain Leo Walsh. He's asked to state his name, clearly, for the record. He says, Leo Francis Walsh.
Seems straightforward enough. But then
the ship's computer, that wonderfully impartial, totally logical repository of all Federation data, immediately cuts in with a single, blunt word. Incorrect.
Huh. You can just picture the look on his face.
Oh, definitely. He tries to argue with the machine, of course, calls it a soulless mechanical device, insists it's wrong.
As if arguing with the computer is going to change the facts stored in its memory banks.
Exactly. But the computer is relentless. It just instructs him again. State his correct name. So he tries again. Harry Mudd.
Closer, maybe.
Computer says, incorrect. He tries one more time. Fenton Mudd.
Still wrong.
Still incorrect. He's striking out.
So the computer finally just gives up on him guessing and spills the beans.
Pretty much. The computer then proceeds to pull up the actual record for the individual the Enterprise has rescued, displaying all his data right there on the main screen for everyone to see. And the list of offenses, well, it reveals quite a history.
Let me guess, not exactly minor infractions.
Not at all. Smuggling, though, the sentence for that was suspended, interestingly. Then there's transport of stolen goods, and, the real kicker, purchase of a space vessel using counterfeit currency.
Counterfeit currency, okay, so definitely a con man.
Oh, yeah. And the source notes for that last one, the sentence involves psychiatric treatment, but adds its effectiveness was, quote, disputed.
Disputed. That tells you a lot right there, doesn't it? Suggests maybe the treatment didn't exactly stick?
You could say that.
Yeah.
So Leo Francis Walsh is definitively, officially unmasked as Harry Mudd. A known criminal, a con artist, with a documented history of shady dealings.
And the charges against him from this current incident start piling up too, right?
Right. They're read out. Illegal operation, specifically galaxy travel without filing a flight plan, traveling without a registered identification beam, which is basic safety protocol, and, of course, failure to answer a starship signal. The source sums it up nicely. He's a menace to navigation.
Just flying around breaking all the rules, endangering other ships.
Exactly. And on top of all that, he was operating his vessel without a valid master's license.
Which the computer probably has a record of, too.
Oh, you bet. The computer confirms his master's license was revoked a long, long time ago. Stardate 1116.4, way back then.
Wow. So he wasn't just engaged in illegal activities. He was doing it while completely unlicensed to even fly a ship in the first place. That's reckless on a whole other level.
It paints a picture of a seasoned, maybe pathologically dishonest, and utterly reckless con man, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But knowing Mudd, he doesn't just fold, does he? He must have some kind of story ready.
He's Harry Mudd. Of course he does. He's not easily fazed. he immediately launches into this elaborate defense, this completely fabricated story, claiming that the real Leo Walsh was his captain, but, tragically died suddenly mid-voyage.
Oh, convenient.
Very. Forcing poor Harry Mudd to take over command out of necessity. He even insists he assumed Leo's name out of courtesy, in memoriam, just laying the fake sentimentality on thick.
Classic Mudd. Always playing an angle, always trying to generate sympathy or confusion.
But then he tries to explain his supposed business and destination. He claims he was headed for planet Oyukus 3. His stated purpose, waving settlers.
Waving settlers? What does that even mean?
Kirk asks the same thing, pushes him for clarity on waving. So Mudd quickly amends his story, says he recruits wives for settlers on frontier worlds.
Ah, okay. Mail-order brides, basically.
Pretty much. He describes it as a difficult but satisfying task, even has the nerve to call it a sacred public trust.
A sacred public trust from Harry Mudd. That's rich.
Isn't it? And just as he's laying it on thick, the computer, maintaining its perfect deadpan impartiality, interjects once again. Incorrect.
Uh-huh. Gotta love the computer's timing. Just cutting through the BS.
It's perfect. But Mudd, the improviser, he doesn't even blink. He immediately adjusts his claim again. Well, I'm about to start devoting my entire life to it.
Unbelievable. He just pivots instantly.
This whole exchange, it just perfectly captures Mudd's character, doesn't it? The constant lies, the quick thinking under pressure, the complete lack of regard for truth or consistency. He just makes it up as he goes along.
And what about the women? Does the computer have anything on them?
That's the next question asked. The computer is queried for any data on the 3 female survivors.
Yeah.
The response is simple and maybe a bit telling. No data.
No data. So as far as the official Federation records are concerned, they basically don't exist. Or at least they're not known criminals or persons of interest.
Seems that way. They're effectively unknown entities to the computer.
Which is interesting in itself. But the hearing does give the women a chance to speak for themselves, doesn't it? To offer their side of things.
Yes, it does. When Kirk asks if they came voluntarily with Mudd on this wife recruiting mission, Mudd confidently jumps in, of course. He even provides some supposed background details. Ruthie, he claims, is from some pelagic planet, sea ranchers apparently. And Magda, who we later know as Evie, he says she's from a helium experimental station. Just throwing out plausible-sounding origins.
Trying to build a picture of legitimacy.
Exactly. But then Evie speaks up for herself. And her testimony, it's incredibly revealing, and you can really feel the emotion behind it in the source.
What does she say?
She says, with his palpable frustration, it's the same story for all of us. No men. She just cuts right to the chase.
Oh.
Yeah. She paints this picture of her life back on her farm planting, surrounded only by automated machines, no human contact except her 2 brothers for whom she's constantly cooking and mending. Dealing with the drudgery, she mentions canal mud, a foot thick on their boots. It sounds like a life of just relentless, isolating labor.
A really bleak existence. Lonely.
Extremely lonely. And her frustration just boils over. She exclaims, "We've got men willing to be our husbands waiting for us, and you're taking us in the opposite direction, staring at us like we were Saturnius Haram girls or something."
Okay, so she confirms Mudd's basic premise. They are going to meet potential husbands. But her anger. She clearly resents being delayed, and she definitely resents being gawked at or treated like some kind of exotic object.
Precisely. She expresses this desperate longing for companionship, for a family, for just a different life than the isolation and drudgery she's known.
So the hearing wraps up after that.
Yeah. The formal proceeding concludes. The actual charges are only being filed against Harry Mudd for his illegal operations. He offers his ridiculous story about Captain Walsh and recruiting wives as his defense, claiming it's heaven's own truth.
Which no one believes for a second by now.
Not a chance. The hearing is closed. The captain states Mudd is to be confined under guard and will be handed over to the proper legal authorities at the next opportunity. Justice, sort of, served.
But what about the women? Their ride, their sponsor, their whatever Mudd was, is now under arrest. What happens to them?
That's exactly their question. They're left in this incredibly precarious position. They immediately voice this desperate plea. And what about us? What happens to us? Help us, please. All of us. You can feel their panic.
And Mudd, what's his response now that his scheme seems to be falling apart?
His response is just characteristically cold and entirely self-interested. He basically tells them, must make your own way if you don't. He's already washing his hands of them, completely focused on his own impending legal troubles. No loyalty there.
Wow. Charming guy. So, that contrast is really stark, isn't it? You heard Mudd's criminal record, all his lies, his clearly bogus profession. Why would he lie so extensively about his name, his business? Obviously, he was up to something far more illicit than just arranging marriages.
Clearly. And what does the women's testimony, especially Evie's raw honesty about her lonely past and her desperation for a future, add to our understanding?
It suggests they aren't just simple accomplices in Mudd's scheme, right? They seem more like individuals driven by really difficult circumstances, a powerful yearning for something more than they had, which unfortunately might have made them vulnerable to the promises of someone like Harry Mudd.
Exactly. They seem less like collaborators and more like desperate passengers on his crooked ship.
The human drama is definitely unfolding, layers of deception and desperation, but while all this is happening, the mechanical crisis aboard the Enterprise hasn't gone away. In fact, it's escalating. Again.
Yeah, right after the hearing concludes, the situation down in engineering becomes absolutely critical. Remember those failing lithium crystals?
How could we forget? The heart of the ship's power.
Well, the source says the last remaining primary lithium crystal is now gone, or at least failing rapidly. It's described as having a hairline split at the base. That's it. No more main power generation. The entire ship is now dependent solely on emergency batteries.
Oh boy. That is bad. Really bad. Batteries only last so long on a starship.
Exactly. And that means every system on the ship, navigation, weapons, shields, everything, is on borrowed time. Engineering sends an urgent report. The entire life support system is now running purely on batteries.
Life support on batteries? That's the clock ticking down right there.
You bet. Scotty, the chief engineer, is understandably beside himself. He vents his frustration, and you can just hear it. Almost 1 million gross tons of vessel, depending on a hunk of crystal the size of my fist. It highlights the fragility of their situation.
And he must be furious at Mudd.
Oh, absolutely. He directs his anger squarely at Mudd, calling him a jackass, who not only wrecked his own ship through his illegal flight, but directly endangered the Enterprise and everyone on it by forcing that power-draining rescue.
Scotty's anger really underscores the severity, doesn't it? The risky rescue, while morally necessary, consumed the critical power buffer they needed to maintain the system's stability. It led directly to the loss of these vital components.
Yeah, the problem isn't just a temporary blackout anymore. It's the fundamental failure of their primary energy source. They are utterly dependent on finite battery reserves drifting in space.
Desperate times. So who comes up with a potential solution?
Mr. Spock, naturally. Ever the logical problem solver, the walking database. He analyzes their situation, their remaining power, their location, and offers a potential lifeline. A planet called Riel 12.
Riel 12, what's special about it?
It's known for a lithium mining operation. And crucially, it mines high-grade ore, the kind the Enterprise needs. Even more crucially, Spock calculates it's less than 2 days' travel away at their current reduced speed, potentially within their dwindling auxiliary power range.
A gamble, but maybe they're only one.
It seems so. The captain immediately orders a new course set for Riel 12. His captain's log entry at Stardate 1330.1 grimly summarizes their state.
Yeah.
They're on auxiliary impulse power only, fuel reserves are critically low, barely sufficient just to achieve orbit when they get there, let alone maneuver.
So getting there is step one, but getting the crystals and getting away again is a whole other problem.
Exactly. Kirk notes in the log that replacing the lithium crystals is imperative. Survival depends on it. He also has another note about that other ongoing mystery.
Oh, women.
Yeah. He logs that the mysterious effect of Mudd's women continues to grow, still totally unexplained. So that the problem hasn't gone away either. Meanwhile, Mudd is confined under guard. But as we're about to see, confinement doesn't necessarily mean neutralized when it comes to Harry Mudd.
Never underestimate Mudd.
So, think about this sequence for a moment, you. The source material paints this perfect storm, a textbook example of cascading failures and unforeseen consequences.
It really does map it out clearly.
Mudd's initial illegal flight forces the Enterprise into a risky rescue. That rescue drains their power reserves, stressing the ship's systems. That stress causes the critical lithium crystals to fail. The loss of the crystals puts them onto emergency batteries. Their dependence on batteries creates this desperate, urgent need for more crystals.
Which forces them into this potentially dangerous, unplanned journey to a remote mining planet, Riel 12, putting the ship and crew further at risk, all while dealing with Mudd and the mystery of the women.
It's just one thing after another. How does that one initial bad decision, Mudd deciding to run from the authorities, or that one unforeseen event, his ship breaking up so quickly, compound the problem so dramatically? It leads to this desperate chain reaction for the Enterprise.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is on a starship, and in complex situations generally. Initial actions, even seemingly small ones, can have massive, unforeseen, and increasingly dire consequences down the line. One domino knocks over the next, and suddenly you're facing total system collapse.
A powerful lesson in consequences. So as the Enterprise limps towards Riel 12, on what little power they have left, interactions happening aboard the ship start giving us more clues. Clues about the mysterious women and confirmation that MUDD, even locked up, is still somehow pulling strings.
Right, he's not out of the picture yet.
Not by a long shot. There's this interesting little scene where Dr. McCoy, the ship's chief medical officer, tries to get a medical reading on Mira, one of the women, just as she happens to walk past his scanner panel in sickbay.
And the scanner goes haywire.
Pretty much. The source says the scanner reacts abnormally, displaying a reading that McCoy mutters it's not supposed to do that. He's clearly puzzled, asks Mira if she's wearing some kind of unusual perfume or maybe something radioactive.
Trying to find a logical, physical explanation?
Exactly. But her answer is just simple and, well, enigmatic.
No, I'm just me.
Just me?
Yeah.
Not very helpful for McCoy.
Not at all. He's left scratching his head, wondering aloud, I wonder what makes it do that.
But this is another crucial piece of objective data, isn't it? Just like the widespread physiological effects on the men, the medical scanner reacting abnormally around Mira provides more scientific evidence. There is something genuinely unusual about these women, something affecting standard Starfleet instrumentation as well as male biology, and it defies easy explanation.
It reinforces that this isn't just in the crew's heads. Later, Mira actually seeks out the captain. Goes to his quarters.
Wow.
She claims she was just trying to take a walk, get some air maybe, but found the men aboard the ship just staring at her, following her with their eyes wherever she went.
Which confirms their earlier observation about feeling watched.
Right. And the captain acknowledges this is highly unusual behavior for his disciplined crew. He suggests it must be your own somehow, implying the cause is something inherent to her, to the women themselves, not just the men reacting normally. Their conversation then gets a bit more personal, doesn't it?
It does. Mira starts talking about understanding loneliness, especially for someone like the captain, carrying so much responsibility.
Yeah.
She brings up this idea of a starship commander needing to be a paragon of virtue, and they actually share this quiet moment. Sort of agreeing that they've never actually met a real paragon of virtue. It creates a little connection, a shared sense of flawed humanity.
A moment of vulnerability.
Exactly. And then building on that moment, Mira just breaks down. It's a crucial emotional beat in the source. She confesses, I just can't do it. I don't care what Harry Mudd says. I do like you, and I just can't go through with it. I hate this whole thing.
Wow. That's huge. What does that tell us?
It tells us so much. It confirms definitively that Mudd is manipulating the women, that they are part of some kind of plan or scheme he's orchestrated, and that Mira, at least, has developed serious moral qualms about whatever it is they're supposed to do. She's clearly in distress, struggling with her conscience, maybe even developing feelings for Kirk that conflict with Mudd's plan.
So she's not just a pawn, she's a conflicted individual caught in his web. And does she reveal anything specific about Riel 12?
Yes, she provides specific, very valuable intel. She names the lithium miners they're going to meet: Ben Childress, Gossett, and Benton. And she confirms the number. There are exactly 3 of them.
3 miners.
And they've been totally isolated on that planet for almost 3 years. The captain confirms the number 3, and you can almost see the pieces clicking into place in his mind.
3 lonely, isolated miners. And Harry Mudd just happens to have 3 companions with him. The math isn't hard to do.
Not at all. And just as this is sinking in, proving Mudd is still manipulating things even from his cell, his voice is suddenly heard, seemingly communicating from outside his cabin, somehow maybe over an intercom he rigged. Who knows?
Still scheming. Unbelievable.
He immediately picks up on the key details Mira just revealed about the miners' lonely, isolated, overwork, and crucially, potentially rich from the lithium. He calls out to the women, dangling this prospect of immense wealth and status.
Playing on their desperation again.
Exactly. He tells them they won't have to settle for a mere ship's captain like Kirk. He'll get them men who can buy you the whole planet. He starts promising them titles, like Countess and Duchess. He's twisting their apparent desire for a better life, for companionship, into something purely transactional, based on wealth and status.
Classic Mudd economics. Everything's a deal. Everyone have a price.
And he even takes a moment to boast, taunting Kirk directly from his confinement, claiming he'll be running the starship soon.
Captain James Kirk, the next orders you're taking will be given by Huck Fenton Mudd.
The sheer arrogance. Even locked up, he thinks he's in control.
It's astounding. But while MUDD is dreaming of planetary riches and command, the source shows the women are clearly distressed and deeply unhappy with the situation MUDD has put them in. Evie voices her conflict openly, saying something like, "I don't like you, and I'm not very happy with myself either."
So the conflict Mira felt seems shared. They're not comfortable with this plan. Doesn't seem like it. They also feel unwell. They sense that it must be near the time, indicating some kind of change is coming, something cyclical maybe. And significantly, their physical appearance is visibly starting to change.
This must be linked to that mysterious effect.
Seems likely. Evie expresses real fear about it, saying, "Look at my face, it is the Pierce."
Yeah.
Maybe meaning pale or changing. She worries, what if someone sees us like this? They clearly don't want their natural state, whatever that is, to be revealed.
Okay, so this section, just before they arrive at Riel 12, it's packed with information for you, the listener. It shows MUDD's confinement hasn't stopped his scheming at all. He's still actively pulling the strings. His plan, using the women as bargaining chips to leverage the miners' loneliness for their wealth, is becoming crystal clear. But crucially, it also shows the women's growing distress. Mira's confession, Evie's fear about her changing appearance. It strongly suggests they are victims of MUDD's manipulation, not enthusiastic partners. And whatever is causing their strange effect on men seems to be temporary, possibly artificial, and has negative side effects on them. The mystery is shifting, isn't it? It's less about what is causing the effect and more about how and why MUDD is using it.
Exactly. The what is still unknown, but the why is starting to look very transactional and exploitative. And that brings us to Riel 12.
The moment of truth, potentially.
The desperate journey on fumes culminates in their arrival. The Enterprise is critically low on power, barely managing to achieve what the source calls a shaky orbit, an orbit they can only sustain for a terrifyingly short time, 3 days and 7 hours. That is their absolute drop-dead deadline.
The clock is ticking very loudly now.
Louder than ever. Communications are established with the planet's surface, frequency 39. But in a perfect display of his sheer audacity, who makes first contact?
Let me guess. Harry MUDD.
You got it. Still introducing himself as Harry MUDD, somehow he gets on the comms channel first, introducing himself before the Enterprise can even make official contact. He's already trying to seize control of the narrative, position himself as the broker.
Unbelievable. He just never quits.
Never. So, a representative from the miners is beamed up to the Enterprise. The source identifies them as mining chief children, presumably Childress and Mr. Garson. Though, as you noted, the other partners are later named Gossett and Benton, so maybe Garson was just an assistant, or there's a slight inconsistency.
Minor detail. The important thing is, the miners are here to talk.
Right. Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock meet them in the transporter room or conference room. The fate of the entire ship rests on this negotiation.
And Childress, the mining chief, he doesn't waste time, does he?
Not at all. Gets straight down to business. They know the Enterprise needs lithium crystals desperately. They have them. But nope, they are not interested in credits, platinum, any standard form of payment. They prefer a swap.
A barter. Old school. What do they want?
His demand is blunt, immediate, and exactly what we suspected. MUDD's women. That's the price. He adds, if we like them, we'd like to have a look at them first, of course.
Wow. Just laying it out there, treating them like commodities.
Completely. And they tack on another demand. Harry MUDD must be released, and all charges against him dropped.
So they want the women and freedom for the guy who brought them. They're driving a hard bargain.
Extremely hard. It's a stark, clear standoff. Childress states their leverage without any hesitation. You've got no choice, Kirk. You beam a landing party down without agreeing, and you won't find one blessed crystal. No deal. They know they hold all the cards. They're isolated. They control the vital resource the Enterprise needs for survival, and they see this as a golden opportunity to acquire the one thing they've been missing for 3 long years, female companionship.
They're leveraging Kirk's desperation.
Totally. Kirk tries to counter, of course. He attempts to remind the miners of their own dependence on Starfleet and the Federation. He points out they're a long way out in space. They rely on regular ship support for medical emergencies, cargo runs, vital supplies, even starship protection against potential threats like pirates or hostile aliens. He asks them, you want to consider those facts too.
He's appealing to their long-term self-interest. Don't burn this bridge.
Exactly. He's trying to show the value of cooperation versus this one, potentially damaging short-sighted transaction.
But the miners, they're focused on the immediate, aren't they? 3 years is a long time to be alone.
Seems that way. Their immediate perceived need overrides long-term strategic thinking. So MUDD is brought forward, and he presents the women. Childress looks Margot over, seems satisfied, says approvingly, you're not a liar. and welcomes them. Apparently, their appearance meets his approval.
Ugh. Still chilling how transactional it is. So does that seal the deal?
Nope. Even after the women are presented and inspected, the stalemate holds. Childress just reiterates his position flatly. It's still New Deal. He wants Kirk's explicit agreement to all terms.
He's not budging an inch. Meanwhile, back in engineering.
Things are getting worse, predictably. Engineering sends another critical update. Serving batteries, sir. Half an hour. Half an hour of power left on those crucial auxiliary systems keeping them alive.
30 minutes. That's terrifyingly close.
And the orbital decay clock is ticking down, too. Only 3 days of orbital left before they start spiraling in and get pulled down into the planet's atmosphere by gravity. The walls are closing in.
And MUDD. Is he enjoying this?
Oh, you know he is. The incorrigible con man just cannot resist twisting the knife. He gloats to Kirk, dripping with false sympathy. I do hate to see you suffering such a situation, Captain, but truth is true, and the sad fact is you will deal sooner or later. You'll have to. He's absolutely confident that the Enterprise's sheer desperation will force Kirk to cave, to accept his terms and the miners' demands.
He thinks he's won. He's got Kirk over a barrel.
That's certainly how he sees it. And this negotiation scene, it's really central to what the source material is exploring here, isn't it? It's not just a tense moment about the price of lithium crystals.
No, it's much deeper than that. It's about the attempted bartering of human beings.
Exactly. The women are being treated as objects, commodities to be swapped for the survival of the ship, for the crystals. The miners, driven desperate by years of isolation, see them as a resource to be acquired. And MUDD. He's the facilitator, the broker, perfectly willing to trade these individuals for his own freedom and probably a cut of the miners' wealth later.
It puts Kirk in an impossible ethical position.
A profound moral tightrope walk. He has to weigh saving his ship, his crew, hundreds of lives, against refusing to participate in what is essentially a form of human trafficking facilitated by MUDD. The source uses the Enterprise's desperation, their failing systems, as leverage against Kirk's principles, forced by the miners' own desperation for companionship. It creates this incredibly complex, morally fraught standoff.
So Kirk is stuck. What does he do? The clock is ticking down to 0.
With the Enterprise literally minutes from losing essential power and the negotiation completely stalled, the captain makes a difficult, maybe unavoidable decision. His log notes transporting down to Riel 12 to get the crystals, but he explicitly states he's expecting further difficulty from miners. He hasn't agreed to their terms, but he's going down there.
Taking the initiative, maybe hoping to force the issue on the ground.
Seems like it. Stepping onto the planet, the environment itself is immediately a factor. The source repeatedly emphasizes the intense heat. Heat! Heat! It's clearly a brutal, scorching environment.
And Childress, is he any more cooperative down on his home turf?
Not initially. Down on the surface, Childress remains dismissive, almost arrogant, even though Kirk has come to him. He acts like Kirk already won just by beaming down and says he'll get around to take the lithium crystals when I have the time. We're busy.
Busy doing what? He knows the Enterprise is dying.
Exactly. Kirk, acutely aware of their rapidly dwindling power reserves back on the ship, pushes back firmly. You don't have the time. The urgency is palpable.
And the planet itself adds to the difficulty, right? You mentioned storms.
Yeah, the environment is harsh in multiple ways. There are these constant blows, strong winds kicking up dust. The source mentions it's easy to get lost. And then there's a sudden intense magnetic storms where, as the source puts it, the window really rips home, sweeping across the surface, making visibility near zero and playing havoc with electronics.
Not exactly ideal conditions for finding crystals or people.
Not at all. And back on the Enterprise, orbiting precariously, the attempt to locate the needed crystals from orbit using their infrared scanners and sensing systems is completely failing.
Why? What's stopping them?
Those magnetic storms, they're hindering the speed and efficiency of the scans, ionizing the atmosphere, making probing the planet's surface effectively impossible from orbit. They can't get a clear reading.
And presumably, running those powerful sensors is draining the batteries even faster.
You bet it is. Draining their already critically low reserves even further. Scotty, up on the ship, voices his frustration again, commenting that the captain should have somehow secured the crystals during that negotiation aboard the Enterprise before this storm hit. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess.
Easy for Scotty to say, maybe, but you can understand his frustration. He's watching the power needles drop towards 0.
Meanwhile, conditions on the surface deteriorate further. Communications with the miners are lost entirely due to the intensity of the magnetic storm. And then a new crisis. Childress and the girl, The source confirms later it's Evie, are reported missing out in the storm.
Oh, great. So now they have missing persons on top of failing power and no crystals.
Exactly. The power situation back on the ship becomes absolutely dire. Spock reports, "About 5 hours, sir," initially. Then a later, truly terrifying update. All but 43 minutes of power remaining system-wide.
43 minutes, that's it. Life support, everything.
That's what the source indicates. They are on the absolute brink of total system failure. Life support, navigation, everything is about to go dark. The search for Childress and Evie, meanwhile, has been ongoing for hours through the storm, noted as 3 hours, 18 minutes at one point, then 7 hours, 31 minutes passing. Time is almost up.
This is nail-biting stuff. Do they find them?
Finally, yes. A faint infrared reading is detected, pinpointing Ben Childress's quarters back at the mining complex. Something inside is generating heat. The heat unit is operating. There's life, relief, mixed with incredible urgency. MUDD is immediately ordered to the transporter room to be sent down.
Why MUDD?
Good question. Maybe Kirk anticipates needing him for the final confrontation or explanation. It's not explicitly stated, but MUDD is definitely part of the final act. Kirk beams down himself to Childress's quarters.
And what does he find there?
He finds Evie, but her appearance, it's significantly altered from when she first arrived at the Enterprise, even from how she looked during the hearing.
How so? What's different?
The source doesn't give minute detail, but implies she looks less glamorous, perhaps more plain, maybe tired and worn down. And she's clearly distressed, complaining bitterly about feeling ugly, being utterly tired of Harry Mudd and his schemes, and completely fed up with acting.
Acting, so she confirms there was a performance involved.
Seems so. She even reveals some of the mundane realities of her situation there with Childress during the storm, paying for her food by doing chores, doing her own cooking. A stark, harsh contrast to the life of a pampered countess that Mudd was promising her just hours before. The illusion is crumbling fast.
And Mudd arrives on the scene.
Right on cue. Mudd beams down, finds Kirk and Evie there, and immediately tries to control the narrative, predictably. Claims he didn't touch Evie, and says she was bubbling with gratitude towards him, still selling his version of reality even now.
He never learns, but Childress must be there too, right? It's his quarters.
Yes, Childress is there, and he has clearly had enough of Mudd's lies. He confronts Mudd directly, demands he finally tell the truth. And Evie, empowered perhaps by Kirk's presence or just reaching her breaking point, prompts Mudd directly, cutting right to the heart of the whole mystery. The Venus drugs, Harry.
The Venus drug. There it is. The explanation.
That's the big reveal. Kirk and McCoy, back on the ship, maybe via communicator, react. They've heard rumors of such a thing, but dismissed it as just an unsubstantiated story, almost a space legend, an illegal substance whispered about.
But Mudd confirms it, admits it's real.
Cornered, he finally does. Admits it exists, admits it's illegal. He immediately tries to downplay its effects, of course, calling it relatively harmless. Claims it simply gives you more of whatever you have.
More of whatever you have? What does that mean?
He elaborates. For men, he claims, it makes them more muscular aggressive. For women, it makes them appear rounder, more feminine, supposedly heightening their perceived beauty and allure. It enhances desirable traits, basically.
An artificial enhancer. And Evie confirms he used it on them.
She delivers the crucial piece of information that explains everything the Enterprise crew experienced. He gave her the drug to the women before you met them. That's the answer.
So that was the cause of the mysterious magnetic effect on the male crew.
Exactly. It wasn't some innate quality of the women themselves. It was the effect of this illegal drug they were taking, enhancing their appearance and triggering that intense physiological response in the men.
And it explains McCoy's scanner going haywire. It must have been detecting the drug's unusual biochemical signature.
Makes perfect sense. And it also explains why their appearance was changing. The drug was wearing off because Mudd couldn't supply them with more while confined. Their enhanced allure was fading, revealing their natural appearance underneath. The whole mystery is suddenly solved.
Wow. Okay, and while this revelation is sinking in, Childress drops another bombshell, doesn't he? About his partners.
He does. Reveals that his partners, Gossett and Benton, who took shelter in their own quarters during the storm with the other two women, Margot and Ruthie. Well, they didn't waste any time. They are now officially married.
Married? During the storm? How?
Via subspace radio, apparently. Quick frontier-style weddings. So now, two of the miners are legally bound to women whose appearance was based on a drug-induced illusion.
Oh boy. Childress must feel completely cheated. He thinks the marriages are a fraud, right? Based on false pretenses created by Mudd's drug.
Absolutely. He's furious. Kirk points out that legally the miners can probably get out of the marriages if they want to, given the clear deception involved. MUDD, ever the salesman even now, tries to defend his actions, arguing they can't condemn the women just for wanting a better life, trying to shift the blame or evoke sympathy.
But Childress isn't buying it. He's angry about the whole situation.
Deeply angry. He vents his frustration how he and his partners fought hardship, risked their lives, endured years of isolation, finally struck it rich with the lithium crystals, achieved the good life they dreamed of, only to be presented with potential wives who weren't actually what they appeared to be during that crucial negotiation aboard the Enterprise. He feels utterly cheated, like MUDD's deception has tainted everything.
You can understand his bitterness. He thought he was getting one thing based on that enhanced appearance, and now reality hits.
And this is the absolute pivotal moment where the central theme of the source material really comes into sharp focus. Kirk steps forward and directly challenges Childress, not just on the situation, but on what he truly desires deep down.
How does he do that?
He gestures towards Evie, standing there now in her natural, unenhanced state, maybe looking plain or tired after the ordeal and the drug wearing off. And Kirk delivers this incredibly powerful statement about reality versus illusion. He says something like this is what you want, Mr. Childress, implying the illusion. And I hope you remember it and dream about it because you can't have it. It's not real.
Wow. Brutal honesty.
He dismisses the drug-enhanced version of the women, the illusion Childress was initially drawn to, calling it selfish, vain, useless. He draws a stark contrast between that artificial, superficial appeal and the demanding reality of a real wife, a real partner. He talks about the difficult, necessary aspects of a true partnership. Not someone to help you, not a wife to cook and sew and try and knead. He's forcing Childress to confront the uncomfortable difference between a beautiful, easy illusion and a complex, challenging, but ultimately real human being.
He's challenging Childress's own desires and perceptions of value.
Exactly. And then, in a really dramatic, symbolic act of defiance that perfectly underscores Kirk's point, Evie does something remarkable.
What does she do?
She emphatically states that she deliberately took the colored gelatin substitute, basically placebo, a fake pill that MUDD had given them, I swallowed it, when her supply of the real Venus drug was taken away or ran out.
So she's making a statement.
A huge statement. She's confirming that her appearance now, the way she looks in that moment, is her true self, completely unenhanced by the drug. She chose, or is choosing, authenticity, even if she herself might perceive her natural self as ugly or plain compared to the glamorous illusion the drug created. It's a powerful act of self-acceptance, maybe, or at least a rejection of the lie.
That action speaks volumes. It gives Kirk the perfect setup for his final point.
It really does. It provides the perfect illustration for Kirk's concluding statement, which really serves as the core message derived from this whole encounter in the source material. There's only one kind of woman, or man for that matter. You either believe in yourself or you don't.
Boom. Simple, but profound.
It completely reframes the entire situation. The true issue isn't about external enhancement or achieving some standard of superficial appearance. It's about internal belief, self-acceptance, self-worth. It highlights the fundamental difference between chasing an illusion, whether it's beauty, status, or an easy life, and building something real based on genuine connection, mutual respect, and accepting reality, flaws and all.
So how does Childress react to all this? The confrontation, the revelation, Evie's acts, Kirk's speech.
With the truth looked bare, the illusion shattered, and maybe Kirk's words hitting home, Childress finally makes his decision. Confronted with the stark reality, he accepts it. He says, "All right, children, I've gone as far with you as I intend to. I want those lithium crystals, and I want them now." He agrees to give up the crystals. The standoff is over. He's seen through the deception.
So the revelation about the Venus drug, it wasn't just the clever plot twist to explain the mystery. It was much more than that.
Oh, definitely. It was a powerful thematic turning point. It didn't just explain the scientific anomalies, the crew's reaction, the scanner readings. It exposed the fundamental deception at the heart of MUDD's business, highlighted the inherent superficiality and potential harm of beauty created by artificial means, and most importantly, forced the characters, especially Childress, but also Evie and maybe even Kirk, to confront what they truly valued. Was it the allure of a perfect illusion, or the often difficult, messy reality of self, partnership, and genuine connection?
A major moment of clarity for everyone involved, forced by circumstance.
Absolutely. So, with the critical lithium crystals finally secured, the immediate crisis for the Enterprise is averted. Power can be restored. They prepare for departure from the harsh environment of Riel 12. Kirk contacts Spock back on the ship, confirms the crystals are found, they're coming aboard. rescue accomplished.
And what about the women? Now that the truth is out, what happens to them? Do they go back with MUDD? Stay with the miners?
They have choices to make, now based on reality, not illusion. The source tells us Evie decides to stay on Riel 12, at least for the time being. She tells Childress, Evie will stay today, at least we want to talk.
Interesting. So maybe something real could come out of this after all, exploring a connection with Childress, perhaps? Or just needing time to process?
The source leaves it open. It suggests she wants to explore something with Childress, now that the masks are off, or at the very least, take time to figure out her next stakes on her own terms, maybe finding a more genuine path forward than the one MUDD offered.
And MUDD himself, what's his fate? Does he stay too?
Not a chance Kirk is letting that happen. Only 2 people beam back up to the Enterprise from Childress's quarters. Captain Kirk and Harry Mudd. Mudd, knowing full well he's heading for a Federation penal colony and likely a very long sentence, is desperate. He actually pleads with Kirk to just leave him behind.
Leave him on Riel 12 as punishment?
Yeah. He asked, don't you think you could possibly, by accident, arrange to leave me behind here on this planet? He knows the legal authorities will probably throw away the key this time. He's trying one last desperate con.
Does Kirk even consider it? Must be tempting.
Maybe tempting, but Kirk refuses to just abandon him, Federation principles and all that. However, in a moment of maybe unexpected pragmatism or perhaps just dry wit, he offers Mudd a tiny, almost insulting sliver of hope. He says he'll be a character witness at Mudd's trial.
A character witness, after everything Mudd did.
Kirk then immediately asks Mudd, completely deadpan, if he thinks that would actually help him.
Huh. Probably not the glowing recommendation Mudd was hoping for.
Definitely not. But Mudd, ever the hustler, he gets the last verbal jab in, directed at Kirk. He just can't resist seeing an angle everywhere.
What does he say now?
He asks Kirk if he's ever considered going into the patent medicine business, selling snake oil after that powerful talk he gave down on the planet. He's suggesting Kirk has a real talent for persuading people about miracles.
Trying to drag Kirk down to his level, implying Kirk's integrity is just another form of salesmanship, another con.
That's exactly the implication. It's Mudd's final attempt to reframe everything, to deny the moral difference between them. Kirk just dismisses the idea flatly, saying he has no interest in working Mudd's side of the street.
Good for Kirk. So, back on the bridge, crystals installed, power coming back online. How does Spock react to the resolution?
Spock, back in his logical element on the bridge, expresses his distinct relief that the whole affair is finally concluded. He calls it, in typical Spock fashion, a most annoying emotional episode.
Annoying. Understatement of the year, maybe.
He observes that the emotional turmoil seemed to hit humans, smack right in the old line, indicating it struck right at the core of human emotions. He then adds, with perhaps a touch of Vulcan satisfaction, that he's pleased his internal arrangement differs from Dr. McCoy's.
Meaning he wasn't as affected by the women's allure or the emotional drama?
Precisely. Implying his Vulcan detachment allowed him to remain largely objective, perhaps view the whole thing clinically, unlike the emotionally susceptible humans around him, especially the passionate Dr. McCoy.
A little Vulcan jab at human irrationality.
Seems like it. And with that, the Enterprise sets its course. Systems coming back online, engines engaged. They're finally out of that shaky orbit, leaving the hot, dusty planet and its dramas behind them. The source again notes, heat, 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 heat. As they depart, a final reminder of the harsh environment and the tense, heated situation they've just managed to overcome, the ship is saved. But not without significant cost, risk, and some profound, maybe uncomfortable revelations for everyone involved.
So, to bring this really fascinating deep dive to a close for you, we've journeyed alongside the USS Enterprise through that incredibly perilous rescue in the deadly asteroid belt.
Felt the tension there.
We experienced firsthand the baffling widespread physiological effect caused by Mudd's mysterious women, an effect that disrupted the entire ship.
Yeah, that was a central mystery for a long time.
We watched the unmasking of the notorious conman Harry Mudd, peeling back the layers of his elaborate scams and lies.
Always entertaining, if infuriating.
We felt the crushing pressure of the engine failure, the dwindling power reserves, the sheer desperation driving their actions.
Right down to the last few minutes of battery power.
We witnessed that incredibly high-stakes negotiation on Riel 12, the chilling attempt to barter human beings for the ship's survival.
A real moral dilemma.
And finally, we uncovered the surprising, ultimately illuminating truth about the illegal Venus drug, understanding how it created the illusion and revealing the superficial nature of the perceived beauty that caused so much chaos.
It really tied everything together in the end. So what are the key insights, the main takeaways you can pull from diving deep into this particular source material?
Well, several stand out, I think. First, you clearly see how extreme desperation in this case, brought on by the engine failure and the complete lack of other options, can force incredibly difficult, even morally questionable choices. It really highlights the immense pressure faced by command, like Kirk and the crew, in life or death situations.
Yeah, the Real 12 negotiation really drove that home. What else?
The power of illusion and perception is obviously a massive theme running through the whole thing. The women's appearance, artificially heightened by that Venus drug, created this potent, almost overwhelming disruptive effect. It powerfully demonstrates how external factors, even completely artificial ones, can profoundly influence our reactions, our desires, even our basic physiology. It shows how easily, maybe unconsciously, we can be swayed by appearances, by what seems to be real.
That magnetic effect was really startling in its universality.
Definitely. And then there's Harry Mudd himself. He serves as the absolute quintessential con man, doesn't he? He expertly identifies and exploits desperation and deeply held desires, the miners' intense loneliness and their newfound wealth, the women's yearning for companionship and escape from bleak lives. He manipulates everyone for his own potential profit and freedom. He really reveals that cynical, transactional side of human nature when faced with vulnerability and opportunity.
He's a master manipulator, no question. And the final lesson.
I think the final lesson, the one most clearly articulated by Kirk down on the planet and powerfully demonstrated by Evie's symbolic act with the placebo, is about the vital importance of internal belief. Self-acceptance, authenticity. The source draws this incredibly stark contrast between superficial attraction enhanced by artificial means and the idea of true connection, real partnership, being built on the messy, challenging, but ultimately grounding reality of who people truly are, not on some perfect, unattainable illusion.
Believing in yourself versus believing in a fantasy.
Exactly. So why does digging into this specific source, this story, matter to you today, beyond just being a really engaging classic piece of space adventure?
Yeah, what's the relevance for us?
Well, think about how that core tension, perception versus reality plays out constantly in our own lives, every single day. How do we react to superficial appearances? Whether it's in people we meet, products being advertised, opportunities presented online, are we sometimes chasing what we think we want based purely on the outward presentation, the shiny surface?
Like the miners were initially drawn to the drug-enhanced women.
Precisely. Or do we take the time, do the work to understand what we truly need in relationships, in our careers, in our lives generally, even if that reality is less outwardly glamorous, less immediately appealing, or just plain harder than the illusion? It's a constant balancing act, isn't it? Distinguishing the superficial from the substantial.
It really is. Okay, so building on this deep dive, drawing from the source material we've explored today, here's maybe a final provocative thought for you to consider as we wrap up.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a seemingly simple, illegal chemical compound, that Venus drug, could alter the perception of beauty and desirability so dramatically, causing such a widespread, almost involuntary physiological effect on others, what other forces, maybe less obvious ones, are currently operating in our own society? Things like, say, mass media, targeted advertising, pervasive social media pressures. How might they be shaping our understanding of beauty, of value, of status, of desirability, without us even fully realizing it?
That's a really potent question. Are we chasing things that aren't real?
Exactly. What aspects of the quote-unquote good life, or the ideal partner or success, are we collectively chasing today that might, if we really examine them, turn out to be just like that Venus drug? Maybe effective in creating an immediate, powerful attraction or desire, maybe making us feel a certain way temporarily, but ultimately, maybe not real, not sustainable, potentially leading to disappointment or even harm when that illusion inevitably wears off or proves hollow.
What are our modern Venus drugs? That is definitely something worth pondering long after this deep dive is over. You've just exercised some significant critical thinking skills digging into this source material with us today.
Hopefully you found it as fascinating as we did. Keep questioning the illusions, maybe. Thanks for joining us.